Review for Very Bad Things, directed by Peter Berg. Got a great cast: Christian Slater, Daniel Stern, Cameron Diaz, Jon Favreau, Leland Orser, Jeremy Piven, and Janine Triplehorn, who plays Daniel Stern's wife. This is an interesting movie. I've always liked this movie. It's not a perfect movie or anything. I can see why some people don't like it, and I can see why it got bad reviews when it came out. So, this is it's a dark comedy, definitely. Roger Ebert did not like it at all. He gave it a 1 out of 4 stars. He says Peter Berg's Very Bad Things isn't just a bad movie, it's a reprehensible one. It presents a comedy, things that are not amusing. If you think this movie is funny, that tells me things you don't want that about you I don't want to know. I can understand why he says that. I think the problem with this movie is it's too dark. It's too dark of a movie, especially once the bad things happen. So, I mean, this is spoilers. I like the movie. If you're a fan of Christian Slater, especially, I think you should check it out. I think he's basically the star of this movie. I'd say him and Jon Favreau are, but it's really shared between all of them. A little bit less with Leland Orser, but that's kind of his character. He's just kind of a quieter guy. He's like this kind of mechanic nerd, and he's just kind of quiet. He's good though too, but he kind of gets a little bit less to do. The other guys though, it's pretty well done. Great cast. But yeah, I'd say Christian Slater's it's an ensemble cast. He's the lead. Cameron Diaz is also there, especially the second half of the movie. She takes a more active role, but so if you've seen the movie, came out in 1998. Like I said, directed by Peter Berg. I think he's a good director. He's also a good actor. He's in Shocker, which I like that movie. That's another movie that has a lot of problems, but I like it overall. And basically these 6 guys, I think it's 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's 5. These 5 guys, they're all old friends. They're all friends, but if they kind of say it in one scene, they're friends with Jeremy Piven. Jeremy Piven and Daniel Stern are brothers. It's brought up multiple times that they're Jewish, and they're both brothers, and they're friends with Piven. But Stern kind of he tags along with them kind of, and I think he's their boss at work too. He's the older brother, I think, and Piven's the younger brother. And Jon Favreau's about to get married to Cameron Diaz. I couldn't stand... I mean, Cameron Diaz is a beautiful woman, but I couldn't stand marrying her. She's incredibly controlling. She is incredibly domineering. And in the end, she's evil. She's evil. But so are a couple of these guys. And maybe they're all evil. But definitely her and Christian Slater, pretty evil. Pretty evil. And he's gonna get married, so gonna have a bachelor party. They go to Vegas. They get a nice room. They're getting drunk. They're doing drugs. Christian Slater sets up that they have this hot Asian prostitute, and she's a stripper too. Yeah, she's really hot. And she goes there and she's stripping, and Christian Slater's basically brought her for Jon Favreau, but Jon Favreau wouldn't cheat on Cameron Diaz. In fact, none of them would cheat on their Daniel Stern will cheat on his wife. So Jeremy Piven's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have sex with her. So he takes her into the bathroom, and they're having sex, and there's like a towel rack, and it's one of those ones that just kind of protrudes out, and he's having sex with her, pushes her against the wall, that punctures her skull into her brain. She dies instantly. Now, I think a thing I did like, I didn't think that kill was ridiculous. Now, I know you're not probably gonna have a towel rack right like that in a major hotel casino, but still, I always thought it was kind of believable a little bit for a movie. So I always kind of liked that part of it. Like, you could see it kind of happening, maybe, you know, or maybe like she slips and she hits her head on some of the marble or something. But she's dead. Before that, one of the guys, Leland Orser, he's doing, they're doing drugs, coke, and he jumps through the glass table, breaks it. They all start laughing. I mean, that would piss me off too. Because like it's a hotel casino. It's like a nice one too. They're probably gonna charge you like $500 for that easily, because they're gonna totally overcharge you, of course. But so then he does that. They're all like, yeah, they're all screaming and having a good time. And then Jeremy Piven accidentally kills the girl, and he goes out, he's covered in blood, he's freaking out. They are laughing, they're like, what's going on? And then they realize she's dead. Now, then they get a knock at the door, and before this, Christian Slater is basically the alpha of the group, the dominant one, and he's like, okay, this is all going to be attempted murder. We're totally screwed. Especially Piven is screwed. And I think he's right at that point. Probably they're not thinking straight, obviously, but it would look bad. She's a prostitute. There's a bunch of drugs. There's a bunch of alcohol. Jeremy Piven at least would definitely be screwed, because it would look like that, he got rough with her and he killed her. Now, this is when things go totally off the rails, because a security guard knocks at the door. They don't want to open the door. He opens the door, and he's just kind of walking around. He sees that the glass table's broken. And then Christian Slater, hands him like a couple $100. And he's basically like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. We'll pay for everything. He's like, we're pretty much done partying tonight. We're just going to go to sleep. So the guy kind of laughs and he's like, oh, okay, all right. He's like, just keep it down. But they're idiots and they didn't shut the door. So then he sees that there is a dead prostitute on the ground, and of course he's not going to let that go. Christian Slater freaks out, grabs a wine bottle opener, runs up to him, boom, punctures his chest a couple times. He's dead too. There's blood everywhere, like they're serial killers. And then that's the setup for the rest of the movie, because his plan was to bury her in the desert, and now it's to bury both of them in the desert. And he's like, we've gone too far. There's nothing you guys can do, because we're all screwed. Then they go and get supplies to cut them up and put them in plastic, cleaning supplies, put them in luggage. And that pretty much just makes the movie spiral out of control. And the rest of the movie then ensues, and craziness ensues. They do that. They actually get away with that. They clean up the room. They leave the next day. You know, they get the car washed. And they're all kind of freaking out, except for Christian Slater, who I'd say kind of is enjoying this. Now, I think Christian Slater's great in this movie. I've always been a big fan of his. I think he gives a great performance. I think actually all of them do, but I think particularly he's really good. Daniel Stern plays like a neurotic mess after this. He's freaking out. He is, you know, telling them we're going to get caught. He thinks cops are following him when they're not. I guess he's the moral conscience of the group. He reads in a newspaper article that the security guard had children. So, yeah. So this leads to a series of events where him and Daniel Stern and his brother Piven get in a huge fight. And he starts kicking his minivan. And then Piven leaves in his car, turns around, and he's going to crash into his minivan. Daniel Stern jumps in front of the minivan, which is not a good idea, and boom, he's basically killed. He's in the hospital. He whispers something to his wife. They don't know what it is. So then now they're all freaking out. And this leads Christian Slater to start killing people, basically. And it seems like he's enjoying it. And that's pretty much the setup for the movie. And I just think there's some great scenes in this movie. Like Jeremy Piven freaking out after this. Then he starts to freak out. He starts saying after the wedding he's going to turn himself in, which of course would screw all of them. So guess what happens to him? He brings him to Triple Horn, which is the wife of Daniel Stern's house, and he kills her. And Christian Slater says, "Man, she fought like a Comanche or something." And she does. She like bites his dick. Like, it's like, wow, jeez. That scene's brutal because like she's kind of sleeping. She brought them over to the house because she found a note written by Daniel Stern that's saying, you know, we did something very bad in Vegas. They lie to her saying that Daniel Stern cheated on her with a prostitute. And then Christian Slater, the bastard, adds, it wasn't the first time. And she's crying, but he's just kind of covering his tracks for the night. Because, you know, I'm not sure she really believed it. That's a pretty sad scene, too. But yeah, I think that's a problem with the movie, though, is it's too dark of a movie. It's too dark of a comedy. I could see the problems and still enjoy the movie, though. It is kind of a mean-spirited movie. I just think it's all right. I've especially Christian Slater, I think, gives a good performance. Same with Daniel Stern, Jeremy Piven. This poster's kind of ridiculous. I don't know why he has a chainsaw. They don't even use the chainsaw to cut him up. It'd be way, you know, it's too loud. He kind of cuts him up with like a saw you would cut up wood with. So, but the movie's budget was $30 million, box office $21 million. It's a flop. And then in the end, Cameron Diaz learns what's going on. She ends up basically killing Christian Slater because the insurance money and his kids were Jon Favreau is like the godfather to Daniel Stern's kids and all his money. but he didn't really have any money. He had like $14,000 around there because he had a $500,000 life insurance policy, but he didn't pay the last couple months, so that's gone. And then everything else, it's about $14K, which is like nothing. You know, he's going to raise their kids. One of the kids is on crutches. So then Christian Slater starts saying, well, I want that money. He says there is no money and you're not getting anything, because Jon Favreau's like, now, like, you're evil. Something's wrong with you. And then they start fighting. This is the day of the wedding. She goes in there. She picks up like a big piece of metal, basically kills him. He dies a little bit later, but. And then after the wedding, she says because there's only Leland Orser left and the dog, Daniel Stern's dog, and she says, I want you to go back out there and I want you to bury him and the dog. Even though Orser really hasn't been much of a problem, he's kind of, you know, been cool, calm, and collected, kind of. He's like, you want me to kill the dog? So yeah, she's pretty much pure evil too. And in fact, she kind of reminds me of Christian Slater in this. Like, she just has no morals. She's totally selfish. So, you know, just like Christian Slater's character, he can't go through with it. They're driving back. There's a car accident. He ends up being in a wheelchair, losing his legs. Leland Orser ends up being in a wheelchair. And then this is her life. And that's the end of the movie, pretty much. But yeah, I could see why he would hate it. It's not a perfect movie. I'm not sure what I would give it, but yeah, that's about it though. I like Peter Berg as a director. See, he did Lone Survivor, which I thought was good, Deepwater Horizon. Wonderland, which is that? Oh, that's a different one. There's like multiple movies called Wonderland. But he's done a couple movies that I've liked, so. But yeah, that's about it though. Very Bad Things. I'd say give it a watch. Just, you know, don't take it too seriously, but I could definitely